My name is Scarlet. I grew up without my father, but to be honest, I never really felt like I was missing something. My mom was everything to me, strong, hardworking, and loving. She raised me on her own and did whatever it took to make sure we had food on the table and a roof over our heads. Our apartment wasn't big or fancy, but it was home. I remember the soft hum of my mom's sewing machine late at night as she worked on clothes to earn a little extra. That sound became part of my childhood, something that made me feel safe. I helped out around the house however I could, washing dishes, doing laundry, keeping things in order. My mom used to say, "Bella, you have to learn to take care of yourself. The world won't do it for you." Even though life was tough, I was happy. One day at school, they brought in a few old computers that had been donated. While most of the kids played games, I was fascinated by how they worked. I'd stay after school just to click around and see what I could learn. That's when Mr. Hudson, our IT teacher, noticed me. He caught me trying to install some video editing software once. I thought I was going to get in trouble, but instead, he smiled and said, "Let me teach you." From then on, every Tuesday and Thursday, he showed me how to edit videos, and I practiced on our old desktop at home. I loved it. When high school ended, I knew college wasn't an option, not right away. We couldn't afford it, and I didn't want to put more pressure on my mom. So I applied for a job at our local TV station, WKP. I didn't think I had much of a chance, but after 3 interviews and a hands-on test, they gave me the job, as a junior video editor. The pay wasn't great, but I was proud. It was a start. For 3 years, I worked hard. I saved everything I could, working extra freelance gigs on weekends to build a college fund. I didn't have much of a social life, but I was focused on building something better. Then, one night, everything changed. My friends Abigail and Benjamin convinced me to go out to a house party. That's where I met Jasper. He wasn't the kind of guy you'd expect to turn heads, but something about him stood out, especially when he talked about his job in software development. He had this calm confidence that drew me in. Before the night was over, he asked for my number. I hesitated, then gave it to him. From there, things moved fast. We started dating, and soon I found myself falling for him. It felt fresh and exciting. One evening, after a movie, he took my hand and asked me to marry him. I said yes. Our wedding wasn't big, but it was beautiful. Jasper's parents, Lucy and Colton, welcomed me with open arms. They were warm, kind, and incredibly generous. Even though they came from a much wealthier world than I did, I felt nervous around them at first, but they never made me feel small. The first 3 years of marriage were good. We lived in a cozy apartment near my work, and Jasper had a great job at a tech company. We took weekend trips, something I had never done growing up. Every time we explored a new city or tasted a new kind of food, it felt like opening a door to a world I never knew existed. But slowly, things started to change. At first, it was small. Jasper would sigh when I talked about my job. He'd roll his eyes when I got excited about something new I learned in editing. He stopped inviting me to his work events, saying things like, "It's just a boring thing, you wouldn't enjoy it." One night, I overheard him on the phone telling a coworker, "Bella's not into those kinds of events," but the truth was, he never even gave me the chance. I asked him about it. "Are you ashamed of me?" I said, voice shaking. He looked away and said, Sometimes it's hard for you to keep up with the conversations. I don't want you to feel out of place." Those words stung. I couldn't forget them, but instead of letting them break me, I let them drive me. I enrolled in night classes at our local community college and started studying information technology. It wasn't easy juggling work, school, and home, but I was determined. Still, the more I grew, the more Jasper pulled away. He became cold, distant, and eventually cruel. One night, I came home from class after acing a big test. I was excited to tell him. Instead, I walked into a storm. He was sitting there with a glass of whiskey in his hand. "Where have you been?" he barked. I reminded him about my class, but he didn't care. He called me a fool, a hillbilly, said no amount of school would change what I was. I stood there frozen, until I heard someone gasp. Jasper's parents had come over unexpectedly and caught everything. Lucy stepped in right away. "How dare you talk to your wife like that, Jasper? We raised you better." But Jasper didn't care. He snapped back, calling me embarrassing, said I wasn't good enough to keep up. That's when Colton, usually calm and quiet, lost it. He said, "Your grandfather didn't have any education. And he worked harder than anyone I know to give me a better life. Don't act like you're royalty. After that night, Jasper got worse. He stopped coming home on weekends. I filled my days with work and school, doing everything I could to keep moving forward. Then I got the worst news of my life. My mom was sick, cancer. It took her quickly. She was gone in just a few months. Losing her shattered me. She had always been my rock. Jasper offered no real comfort, just distant words and empty gestures. I found comfort in someone unexpected, Lucy. She checked in on me, invited me over, and gave me the space to cry and grieve. She became the mother figure I so desperately needed. But Jasper didn't like it. One night, he lashed out at me again. Why are you always over there, trying to turn my parents against me? I didn't even have the strength to argue anymore. I just cried myself to sleep. A few weeks later, I started feeling sick in the mornings. At first, I thought it was the stress, but after a while, I realized it might be something else. I bought a pregnancy test. When I saw those 2 lines, my whole world changed. I was going to be a mother. I waited for Jasper to come home, heart pounding. When I told him, he didn't hug me, he didn't smile. He told me to get an abortion. Just like that. I ran. I didn't even think about it. I went straight to Lucy and Colton. When they saw me crying, they wrapped me in their arms. I told them everything. Lucy took my face in her hands and said, "This is your decision. If you want this baby, we'll be here for you. Forget Jasper." Those words saved me. The months that followed were hard. Jasper barely spoke to me. He stayed out all the time. I focused on work, on saving money, and on keeping my baby safe. One afternoon, I came home early from a doctor's appointment and saw Jasper's car in the parking lot. I was surprised. He was never home this time of day. I walked upstairs and opened the door quietly. I heard him talking. "I'll be there in a minute, babe," just grabbing my overnight bag. My heart dropped. I walked in and saw him packing. "Who are you talking to?" I asked. "Where are you going?" He looked annoyed. "I don't have time for this. We'll talk when I get back." I followed him downstairs, demanding answers. That's when I'll never forget the moment my world changed. I had just stepped outside, expecting a normal day, when I saw a car pull up in front of me. It was Jasper's car, but he wasn't alone. Sitting in the passenger seat was a woman I had never seen before, beautiful, with long, flowing blonde hair and flawless makeup. She looked like she had stepped out of a magazine, and even more shocking, she was pregnant. I stood frozen, my feet wouldn't move, and my heart thudded in my chest like a drum. The woman stepped out of the car casually, like this was just another day. She gave me a smug, knowing smile, the kind of smile that says, "I've already won." She walked up to me, her voice sweet but fake, like syrup that had gone sour. "You must be Scarlet," she said. I just stared at her, too shocked to speak. "I'm Ariana," she continued, "Jasper's girlfriend." Those words hit me like a slap in the face. My eyes turned to Jasper, searching for any sign that this was a cruel joke or some kind of misunderstanding, but he wouldn't even look at me. My voice shook as I finally managed to whisper, "Is that true?" He nodded without a word. In that moment, something inside me shattered. "Are you not ashamed?" I asked Ariana, my voice barely holding together. "He's married, I'm carrying his child." Ariana's smile didn't falter, it just got colder. "Ashamed? Not at all," she said. "I fought for my happiness. You've already lost him. Don't blame me for what you couldn't keep." I turned to Jasper, tears in my eyes, anger now boiling over the heartbreak. "How could you do this to us?" I asked. "To me, to our baby?" Finally, he looked at me, but his face was emotionless. "Scarlet," he said calmly, "let's be honest. Our marriage was a mistake. I never loved you. You were just convenient, a good housekeeper, someone to share a bed with. But Ariana, she's different. She's smart, classy, she belongs in my world." Every word stabbed me like a knife, and just like that, he left, with Ariana by his side, promising to return on Monday for his things. I stood there, alone. As they drove away, I fell to my knees right there in the parking lot, unable to breathe, unable to believe this was real. Later that evening, my friend Lucy came over. She held me as I cried and stayed with me all night. Her husband, Colton, even called Jasper to yell at him, furious and disappointed. But Jasper didn't care. He told his own father he didn't need anyone's approval as long as he had Ariana. The weeks after were incredibly hard, but Lucy and Colton stood by me. With their help, I found a small apartment nearby and slowly started over. The divorce was ugly and painful, but in the end, I was free from Jasper. When my daughter Nora was born that autumn, it was Lucy who held my hand through the pain, while Colton paced nervously in the waiting room. Even then, Jasper showed no kindness. He demanded a paternity test. When the results proved Nora was his, the court ordered him to pay child support, though I never expected much from him. Life was hard but not without joy. I went back to school, finished my degree in information technology, and landed a job as a video editor. Eventually, I got promoted to senior editor. Nora grew into a bright and kind little girl, with her grandparents doting on her every chance they got. But life has a way of changing again. Colton became sick, pancreatic cancer. It was already advanced when they found it. We didn't have much time. I spent every spare moment helping Lucy care for him. Colton had been more of a father to me than my own ever was, and I wanted to be there for him the way he had always been there for me. Despite all our prayers and treatments, he passed away 4 months later. His funeral was heart-wrenching. I stood with Lucy and Nora, holding their hands as we said goodbye to a man who had given us so much love. Jasper didn't come. And somehow, that hurt even more, not just for me, but for Lucy, too. Her health declined quickly after that. It was like losing Colton drained the life from her. She barely ate, barely spoke. One night, I sat up thinking, unable to sleep. By morning, I had made a decision. I called my boss and arranged to work from home. Then I packed up Nora and myself and moved in with Lucy. The new routine was tough at first. I hired a nurse to help during the mornings so I could work. In the afternoons, Nora and I would sit with Lucy, reading, talking, sometimes just holding her hand. On the better days, we'd sit outside in the garden and soak up the sun. On the hard days, I simply stayed beside her as she cried for the man she loved and the son she had lost long ago. One day, Nora and I returned from a walk to find a man leaving the house in a suit. Lucy was calm, sitting in her favorite chair. "That was Mr. Andrew," she said, "just going over some legal matters." I didn't press her. I trusted she'd tell me if she wanted me to know. 2 weeks later, Lucy passed away peacefully in her sleep. Calling Jasper to tell him was one of the hardest things I've ever done. His response was cold, indifferent. He only asked about the will. At Lucy's funeral, the church was full. People came from everywhere to honor her. She had touched so many lives. As Nora and I stood at the front, I realized something deep in my heart. Family isn't always about blood. It's about love and choice. Lucy had chosen to love me, and my daughter, even when her own son had walked away. A few days later, I got a call from Mr. Andrew, Lucy's lawyer. He scheduled a meeting for the will reading. Jasper would be there too. I was nervous that morning, but I gathered my courage and went. Jasper and Ariana were already there, dressed perfectly. Cold and distant, Ariana looked at me with a sneer. Mr. Andrew opened a thick folder and began reading the will. At first, Jasper looked bored, but his face changed quickly. First confusion, then disbelief, and finally, anger. "This isn't right," he shouted. "Read that again." Mr. Andrew didn't flinch. "Your mother left everything, her house, her savings, all her assets, to Scarlet and her daughter, Nora." Jasper turned red with rage. "You tricked her, you manipulated my mother." As they stormed out, Ariana hissed at me, "This isn't over." But inside that office, I sat in stunned silence. Lucy had given me everything, not out of pity, but because she believed in me, because she loved us. Later that night, Jasper began calling and sending threats. I changed my number, but the harassment didn't stop. Strange men showed up near our home. One day, I secretly recorded one of them threatening me. I took it to the police. They took it seriously. The investigation moved fast. Even Jasper's hired men turned against him and admitted he told them to intimidate us. I watched as the police put him in handcuffs. The court granted a restraining order. He was forbidden from coming near me or Nora ever again. That night, Nora whispered to me, "Grandma and Grandpa are watching us." I smiled through my tears and kissed her forehead. "Yes, they are, and they'd be so proud of you." Over time, life felt safe again. I was promoted at work. Nora thrived in school. We were finally okay. Until one day, I ran into Ariana. She looked nothing like the woman who once mocked me. Her hair was messy, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes full of desperation. "Scarlet, please," she begged. "Our son is sick, he needs surgery, we need money, can't we have half of the inheritance? You don't need all of it." I narrowed my eyes. "What's wrong with him?" She hesitated, unsure. "His heart, or maybe his kidneys." I don't remember. That's when I knew. "You told me once to fight for my happiness," I said. "Looks like you lost yours." Her expression twisted in anger. "You don't deserve any of this, it should have been ours." I didn't back down. "I owe you nothing, leave now, or I'll call the police." She left, cursing under her breath, but I felt free. That night, I knew what I had to do. I sold Lucy's house. I used the money to buy a new home, far away from Jasper and Ariana, in a place where they couldn't find us. Now, I sit in our cozy living room, watching Nora work on her homework. Her laughter fills the house. We are safe, we are at peace. And I am finally, truly free.